Hey everybody, welcome to Improv FAQ at Length. This is a series of longer conversations about improv topics that have lots of questions surrounding them. I'm James K. Schutte.
I'm Julia Schroeder.
And we have a very special guest with us for this episode. It's Katy Schutte. Thank you so much for joining us, Katy.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah!
We got her!
It took every ounce of strength not to just introduce myself just because of the pattern of you two introducing yourselves. I was like, no, it's not mine.
Yes.
Fun.
But thank you so much for joining us, Katy. We're very excited to talk with you. Bob couldn't be here, so Julia is going to be co-hosting with us. And the three of us actually met at Camp Improv Utopia like 4 years ago, I think in 2016.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yeah, it's been a bit. So we would love to talk with you about the Improv Place, which is your new online education and community resource for improvisers. And you just launched that a little bit ago. And it's such a fantastic offering. And so I want to talk about what the plans are for it, what it is, and the story behind it, because it is something that you were working to develop independently of the pandemic and the push to go online for other reasons. But so I'd love to hear the story behind it and to just really see where the conversation takes us in terms of what it is going to look like long term and all that.
Cool. Yeah, no worries.
So for starters, can you just tell us a short description of like what it is and how you describe it to people when they ask about it?
And who you are. Probably everyone knows.
Nah. So my name's Katy Schutte, as you beautifully pronounced, by the way. Nailed it. I live in London and I work globally until, recently. But even now, we're doing this, so it's all good. Mm-hmm. I teach a lot of improv and I perform a lot of different styles with different companies and things. And I work with a handful of companies. The Maydays is the one people tend to know around Europe, as we've been going about 15 years. I'm the artistic director with Jenny Rowe at the moment. And then I have a sci-fi duo called Project 2 who also tour. And I'll tell you about that because the person I do that with is the other half of the Improv Place. Okay. And yeah, I'm a head teacher at Hoopla, which is the UK's biggest improv school, and all that jazz. Other stuff. I don't know. Ask me. That's me.
You also have a book. Yeah. You
I do. You
honestly, like you are a very influential figure in the improv world, which is like. Not to lay it on thick here, but but yeah,
maybe the most influential.
Maybe. Yeah,
okay.
But it truly is the reason that I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Not just how cool the Improv Place is, but just as a point of progress for something, a way to offer improv and a way to develop a professional career out of improv. Now that we know a little bit about you, let's hear about what the Improv Place is.
Yeah, cool. In fact, your first sentence of summing up, I almost wrote it down because it's much more concise than anything I could say. But yes, you're absolutely correct. It's a community of professional and aspiring professional improvisers. So people there who are like, I really want to do this for more of my time, or I want this to be part of my income or all of my income. Some people want to be teachers. Some people just want to push up their show game or create community from scratch because it's a global thing. It's online. So there's people from loads of different countries and communities who maybe don't have the cool thing of being able to like go to classes from people that are more experienced and certainly, not in the real world. So, we'll come on to pandemic fun times, but before that kicked off, we're very much like, we'd like a place that isn't Facebook because some people want to opt out of Facebook. It's very draining and overwhelming, as I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And more you have to pay to have your community hear about the stuff you're doing, even though they want to and they've bought into it. And obviously all the data mining and, the ethics and all the things about that. Just the ethics.
There's not much good.
Yeah.
Weirdly though, side note, I've used Facebook almost not at all since we launched.
Oh,
And
really?
that wasn't even my plan. I just was like, well, a lot of the people I want to talk to are in the Improv Place. But anyway,
that is a dream. I mean, yeah, it does like stop so many people from logging off of it, is because I think in the improv world we use Facebook so much, and it's been sort of a standard, and like the way of communicating is easy and blah blah blah, but it does suck to have the negative side effects.
Yeah, and I haven't got off of it myself, so totally. I'm not like, you should ditch Facebook and join this. I do think they do different things, but
the Improv Place, a perfect universal substitute
for everyone. For everyone.
It's funny, you talk to me, I'll be like sagging off Facebook. You talk to Chris, and he'll be more like, "Oh, the Improv Place is called." He'll talk about the Improv Place, and I'll hate on Facebook. Very good partnership. But yeah, so it's a community for those people. It acts a lot like Facebook does. There's topics and contents and groups, but you get to choose what you want to hear about, so you don't have to have like this onslaught of loads of information. And all the stuff on there is created by me and Chris, the founders, and or by everyone that's there. So we're not like, we're going to teach the whole world how to be awesome like us. We're like, let's all hang out and exchange information. We can lead on it and sort of find cool stuff and cool teachers and curate, but we're not like trying to be gurus. I think that's another thing that's become really apparent with us all being a little bit more kind of woke and a little bit more boundaried and safe. We've been through a lot of those stages in the last couple of years of just like being more diverse, being more inclusive, uncovering uncomfortable practices and like baked in institution, like, stuff. And a lot of those things are toppling, partly because of Black Lives Matter, I think, and partly obviously because of pandemic. So on the back of that, I think previous to that, we were already trying to make a better place, that can just be where we look out for people with the same ethics as improv, really broadly, that it's welcoming to everyone and positive.
Yeah. And it's that's just so cool. And so obviously one of the main things that you're offering is going to be classes. And then I think it's easier to picture like what that looks like, especially now that more and more people have experience with the virtual platform and classes and rehearsals and jams and whatnot. But for the Improv Place, what does the social media aspect look like? I mean, because truly I have a hard time picturing a social media platform that isn't Facebook or Instagram. But is it pretty much the same thing with like everybody has their own feed and profile?
Yeah, there's a few different things. So you have your private messages, so you can DM people and have little side chats. You have threaded things, so someone can post something and then people reply off it. So those kind of things are the same. You can still share articles and links and mention your show or publish your podcast or whatever. So everyone's more than welcome to share their stuff. We have a built-in kind of topic feature. So if your article is about slow burn, you could tag like article and slow burn, and then anyone that's interested in, I just want to read about some improv, they might look under articles or be alerted every time that comes up. They're like, oh great, someone's put a blog on, I want to read it. Or if they just want to be alerted when stuff comes up about slow burn or anything else, we've got a lot of different topics. Then you can find out about the niche you're into. One thing it does that I don't think Facebook really does is if people are happy to share their location, you can go, where are the improvisers near me? And it'll just be like, here's everyone that's near you. So if you don't know people in your city who are into improv and stuff, you can just be like, oh, hi, I live in Birmingham too, or whatever. And then that becomes a community. We're still new, we're like only a few weeks old. So that will get bigger. But there have already been cool connections where people are like, what? You're here? That's so cool. So there's that. Awesome. But then there's also the more curated aspect. So we have a monthly theme. So every month we'll pick something that we think is a useful or fun or important kind of overarching theme. So for our first month, it's going pro, because the idea of being professional, whether people are professional or want to be or want to do it a bit that's quite, so we're actually talking about big stuff like how much we get paid or like what was your first pro gig and stuff that maybe feels a little bit more uncomfortable on completely public networks. So knowing that they're just people who you either kind of know or they're definitely in the same actual network as you, feels a bit safer to share more, I don't know, slightly intimate detail in that way. Or there's a thread on anxiety where just people are talking about the things that they find hard or coping strategies. So again, it's just a little bit more safe. But then also, yeah, we have questions every day that we'll just put out. So within that theme, there'll be like, 30 questions that we'll put out daily through the month of like, how do you get into improv? Or we'll prompt one of those questions. And then anyone that wants to will answer it and it might start discussions. So rather than just leaving it wide open for anyone to chat about anything, which they also can, there's a bird's eye view from us going, well, over a year, we got like 12 topics that will take you on a big journey so that you can like learn a whole bunch of stuff and become more of a professional improviser, ultimately,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you launched
That's
this
so cool.
In late June.
Yeah.
And you said you have like, what was it, 139 members at this point?
Yeah, I just checked. Well, how many do we have? I said at the time, like, we celebrated that there were 100, and then I haven't looked
39
again.
more.
Yeah. And at the moment, we've just been kind of making sure that it gets off the ground. So we haven't really done the promo as much as we should. So that's really just people we know and also people that are recommended. So we have a scholarship program where people can just say, I can't afford it and come in, or nominate other people. So if there's someone maybe in their sphere who is amazing at improv, or they're like, they don't have access to maybe the teaching or, the resources or whatever, that they can go, hey, I want to nominate my friend Cliff. Don't know why Cliff. And then we'll go, all right, your friend is nominated you. Do you want a space? And then people who COVID affecting everyone's income in different ways. So it might be someone's like, look, I can only pay half right now. We're like, all right, cool. Right. And then there are people who are doing fine and they're more than happy to pay the subscription as well. So it's a whole different audience.
Good.
No, you go ahead, Jules.
You said it's geared toward people who are looking to do this more on a more professional level. Mm-hmm. Is there like, do people have to? Can people just choose that, or how yeah. Who is able to? Oh, okay. So it's just like if
we just basically were like, we want it to be for pro people or people that want to be pro, but also we don't want to be evil gatekeepers because that defeats the whole point of it. So if you're like, I don't think you're good enough at improv, then the whole point is to go on a journey to be better at improv. So if we're excluding people, that would be, so yeah, you self-select, like either you want to do more improv, spend more of your time doing it. It doesn't even have to be like, I want to earn money from it. Mm-hmm. Professional can just mean of a professional level, so.
For sure.
Yeah, anyone's welcome, unless they're a dick and they go against our code of conduct, and then goodbye. But that hasn't happened, and hopefully it won't ever happen.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, because I think like that is the holy grail, is like a social media space that can avoid trolls, right?
I'm weird though. There's a tiny part of me. I don't want anyone to be hurt, but I will almost, like, the point where we get a troll will be like, we're big enough to have a troll.
Like, yes. And you've made it. It's legit.
Yeah, someone's been an asshole. Great. Let's get our team of moderators together and decide what to do about it. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, that was an important element for me and Chris Mead as well, because we're two white people. Ugh. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that, and not just that, like lots of other things. We're cisgendered and able-bodied and all that kind of stuff. So making sure that we have a team of moderators on the site who've called themselves improv prefects. We didn't do that, but now they have a badge, which is cute. So they are there if there is anything that feels trollish, that they can land on it and we can all talk about it if it's a big thing, or they can just shut stuff down if it's not cool. But again, hopefully there won't ever be a thing. That's just
that is so cool. I mean, you mentioned making it one of the goals originally, before everything really kind of blew up with Black Lives Matter. But you mentioned that a original goal was to make it an inclusive and like an inclusive space for everyone, and which is such a, I mean, it's vital because improv is so, based in a lot of privilege with like money and which, then creates like its own problems just from it starting in that place. So just a quick question, like what kind of things, I guess a two-part question. One, do you find that like it kind of being a ground level started by you and Chris, you're able to implement measures a little bit more easily than like a bigger space, I guess? And then also that's so cool that there are like prefects and
I know, right?
yeah. So I guess the follow-up question is like that is maybe one of the measures that is geared toward making it safe and inclusive.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that we're listening. So we're definitely going to fuck something up. So we're just kind of making sure that we have help so that if we do something, just inadvertently because we're stupid, that we can hear it and course correct if we do anything that is not great. But yeah, building from the ground up is definitely really helpful because being the artistic director for the Maydays, that's an all-white performing group at the moment. And that feels really icky and awful. And we've been trying to work in a more diverse way for a number of years, but it feels like an old tanker that's really hard to turn around. So actually that is true, having that in mind at the beginning and not 15 years ago when we were just like, let's do some games was all we knew. So we didn't build that in. And now it takes like a year to become a member and stuff. And I'm not dissing that company. I think what we're doing for, diversity and stuff is positive, but yeah, it takes ages. So it really does help building it from the ground up and making sure, that we have community around us to do that with and for us. Other things we're doing, the scholarship program, which isn't just about diversity, it's just about access, really. And also us just, in fact, interestingly, someone said, we asked someone to be a moderator and they said, look, I'm really ill at the moment and I find I have very little energy and I don't think I can help. And we were like, great, you don't have to, but there are going to be other people that are going through this. So tell us what you need, do as much or as little as you want. That's amazing. And she was like, oh, can I? Amazing. So it's just that kind of thing where we don't go, I'm sorry, if you're not going to do this all day, then we're not interested.
Pros only.
Totally.
Yeah. Adaptable, I suppose. Not making anything a barrier. So the thing about scholarship is other scholarships I've seen in the past are very much like, write us an essay about your life and prove to us why you need this place.
I saw that on your website. We're not going to make you name why.
You have to do a dance. You can just come in.
That's awesome.
So trust, again, it's just that improv thing of like, yes, you can join us. We trust you that you're not like, oh, I can get 50% off. I'm going to do that then. People can afford it. We think it's worth what we're charging people. We're only trying to pay ourselves a little bit for admin, really, and make sure everyone gets paid properly for teaching. We're not like, we're going to make a load of money out of an improv community. I mean, and if we did, we'd just build it, spend it on cool kit and make the site better and stuff anyway. So, so I suppose scholarship, having moderators, having a great code of conduct that again is shown to everyone, and we had people input on that for a couple of weeks before we started, so that's not just us writing it; it's like a collaboration.
So
and making sure that. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You please finish. I didn't.
Oh yeah, and this harks back to a question you said earlier as well, like what do we do, what makes it different? So we have other things that we do every week as well as just like daily polls and questions. So one is we spotlight someone from the community, just have a 15-minute interview and a little article about them. So it doesn't matter whether that person is a teacher or they're fairly new, but they just know it's their thing. Just so that everyone gradually gets to meet each other and it's not all just, you're an A-list improv teacher that's been around forever. Like, let's bring up new talent and make people aware of each other. And we also have office hours, which is just, we have an open Zoom meeting every Friday, which is basically as if me and Chris were sat in an office, and anytime you want, you could just come in and have a chat. And we record one half of that so that people can watch it back if they're in a different time zone. And then the other half is just a kind of closed door thing where if you're in the room, you can talk about whatever you want, but it won't go any further. So they like cool. Things like that. Yeah. And other articles and stuff. So there's new content every week and ways to engage with people.
The transparency and the accessibility of the people who are in charge is such a major part. That's very cool that you are doing those like office hours. I think that's especially, again, because it is made easier by the virtual space to do that. So if you can, it's such a small gesture for the amount of, you don't have to leave your house. And that it does so much that if somebody really is like, I'm just feeling this way, or I'm wondering about this, or I just, anything at all, that they do have access to people who would otherwise be, like you said, gatekeepers, that you make yourself available.
Yeah. I think there's a few ways that we get. Also, time zone wise, we're trying to put our classes on at different times. So the first one is like a London evening time one, but then we also, for us, is 9 a.m. So again, that's another part of the world that is like, oh, this is a good time for me. And then we're putting on another one at midday. They're all the same class, but it means that, again, time isn't like a prohibiting factor as much as well. So you still have the option. And also with our classes, they're a little bit different. Because partly we didn't want to like offend or upset any other London improv theatres, maybe more than anywhere else, because we work for them and with them. So we're not like, we don't want to take business away from people, because that's the worst thing to do right now. I don't really believe in that, actually, because I really genuinely believe in abundance and that there's enough for everyone. Then we're not competing. If we're competing with anything, it's Netflix. But I think so. The first of our classes is done in a more lecture style. So it's more like breakout rooms and assignments and stuff. So it's a little bit different than like a drop-in improv class, which we're doing for other companies. But we're trying to create resources you can't quite get in other places. And when we bring in other teachers, we're like, you might have 40 students. How do you want to do that? Do you want to do like a masterclass where some people pay to be in the scenes? And some people are like, I'll have my screen off and my mic off and I'll just take notes because I want to hear what you have to say. So there's like, different ways of doing it. And we'll also end up putting some free stuff on as well for the people that are just there for membership. So not everyone's there to do a class. Some people just want to hang out in the community. Yeah.
So can we hear the story behind how the Improv Place came to be? Because, I'd love to hear about you and Chris starting it out, and then also all the way up from the very beginning, all the way up to like putting together a team of moderators and what the complete team looks like at this point.
Yeah, cool. So I suppose the inception of it was like me and Chris met years and years ago, and immediately were like, oh, you're a person I want to get to know better. And it was around the time that I moved from Brighton, which is on the south coast of England. I moved to London, and I'd met him at the Edinburgh Festival. He was interning for Baby Wants Candy, and I was doing a Mayday show up there. So it was already a kind of improv crossover where he booked Tim Sniffen for my show. So it was a weird, like, hey, we both are obsessed with Baby Wants Candy. And then we became friends very quickly. I ended up coaching his team, which became the first Harold group in the UK that we know about ever. And then years, but he started doing a duo science fiction show, and they got me to direct. And then after a couple of weeks, they were like, "Do you just want to be in it?" I must have looked like,
yeah, oh, cool. It's very cool what y'all are doing,
And I was like,
directing is fun, but
yeah. Why don't you stop paying me and I'll be on stage? And then the third member of that, so it was a duo, then I joined, and then we played together for a long time. And then the third guy, John Monkhouse, he decided he didn't want to play improv really much. He finds it very anxiety thing, where he was just like, do you know what? I'm just going to join this short form team, and I'm just going to do it for fun. And because we were starting to move up to like bigger European stages, and it felt like a big deal. So I think he checked out at that point. and we're all still friends. But yeah, so we worked together loads, and then we ended up going around Europe and teaching together a lot as Project 2, and he's in the Maydays as well. So basically all our projects kept aligning, and we really like working with each other. And we were discussing things like Facebook and how people communicate, and wouldn't it be great to have a safer space. I don't remember there being like a ding actual moment. I think it just came out of quite a lot of discussions. Chris is really good at sort of not systems, because that sounds boring, but he sees like shiny cool websites and not tech, but like, I don't know, cool new design things. So he always has an eye on them, and he's like, oh, we could use this and we could use this. So there's always a sense of like newness and excitement, rather than just let's cobble together this thing that everyone's used already. So we knew there'd be a bit of a buy-in, because it's a bit scary sometimes with the whole new social media platform. You're like, are people going to want to A, move across to it in some way, and B, like pay for it? That seems like a huge for people maybe. So we did a lot of research in terms of like what we should charge and how we should do it. And we found a platform called Mighty Networks, which you can check out. There's loads of stuff on there. And they basically train you up to use their social media platform and make it your own. And at that point, we were like, okay, let's do it. We did like a 6-week class or whatever, so that we knew how to roll out our community, made it our own, chose our own way of doing it. And then started putting everything together like a regular business, really, doing your business plan, getting your accountant. We had some designers come and do illustrations, and then we had those illustrations made into our branding. We have a font. I mean, who doesn't want to be a grown-up with a font?
Yes.
It's cool, isn't it?
That's a custom font that you had created?
Yeah.
That's
it's really sexy.
awesome.
So cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, which you can see at our website, theimprov.place. So all of that, just being as professional up front as we can, spending a bunch of money to make it good, rather than, I don't know, waiting for people to come and then building around them. We're doing that a bit with the community, but with the actual, like, making it look good, writing all our welcome articles, making sure we have code of conduct in place, how it works, our schedule, like knowing when our office hours are, when we're interviewing people. Just, I guess, like any business, I suppose. A lot of hours up top, and then hopefully people, well, they're already creating their own content and having their own conversations. So we'll be able to do the more crazy ideas we have, the more people get excited about the basic stuff. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and moderators wise, it just seemed like a no-brainer for us to have a bunch of people, all of different backgrounds, in different places, with different challenges, all offering us their opinion on things. And we just met up with them on Zoom and checked in with everyone, and made sure that the channels were always open for people to raise stuff or talk about things. So I guess that really, we actually did a whole launch event, which is about an hour long, and you can still see it on my Facebook, which talks about like the detail of the business and how it was rolling out and stuff. And yeah, but basically if people join, you pay for a subscription, which is like for a year, it's about $100-ish. Or you can bundle it with a class, a 6-week class, and there'll be loads of different classes. But now we're just doing it so you have a voucher and you can spend it anytime. And if you want to do more than one course in a year, you just buy that when you're inside. So it's a cheaper way of giving. It's like a little bundle, or if you don't want to do classes, you can just join the community. That's basically how it works now.
And so, I mean, and honestly, like, again, there's tons of economic strife, which is absolutely understandable. But what you're offering is for that price is, very reasonable for the year, and especially that like bundle. There's classes that are charging, I would say, a bit more for the online classes that are running and whatnot. So what does come along with the basic subscription? You have obviously access to the community forum conversation space. And did you say that there are also like non-class content that live on there permanently?
Yeah. So, like articles and videos and stuff that are exclusive to the site. So it's not
Okay.
like I'm going to make a YouTube video and everyone can see it and I'll just share it. I might do that as well, but there'll also be stuff that's just for the people that have bought into the community. But we also have bigger long-term plans that are kind of like, you're going to get loads of cool stuff. And at that point, we'll probably put the price up. But if you're in early, you're going to get the cool stuff in like a month or so. The sort of things we're talking about, a collab festival. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention who it is yet, but like we'll be part of a festival, which means we can do things like go and film live classes, obviously with the permission of the students and the teacher, and have them as an exclusive online piece of content that only the Improv Place can see. So if you couldn't make that class, you weren't in London, whatever, things like that. And making more, when we're allowed to be in the same room, making more video content that's just like tips and stuff and, like useful improv videos and maybe exercises and things like that. Yeah, so that you're constantly engaged. And, things like we have a list of good ideas park, we call it. So every time we have an idea of like, oh, we should do this. We should pair people up and they should have coffee together. Everyone put your name in, that'll happen. Like mentorship. That kind of thing. So there's like a million other things that will roll out. But yeah, for the moment, it's basically you're part of a great network where people are actually just basically talking about improv at a high level. And people are asking for advice, but also sharing stuff that's really useful that might get lost on other networks and you have to trawl around for. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you said in a recent post, that like when you think about things in terms of value, that there's maybe you can help me out with how exactly you phrased it, but your point was that on Facebook, you are the product, that your information is what the value is for those for Facebook and Instagram. And so it's not that it's free, it's just that someone else is paying for it and they're actually paying for you.
Yeah.
Whereas your community is value-based for the things that people are there seeking. It's exactly what you want, which is what you're paying for.
Yeah, I think you just nailed that. That's exactly right. Yeah, so you're not being, it costs you being on Facebook. Like I bet anyone that's doing gigs and stuff has probably gone, oh, I guess I'll just spend a tenner on, pushing this gig.
God, on ads. Yeah.
So, so over a year, and you don't even know if that's going to reach anyone that's right unless you've got into all the algorithm nitty gritty. Whereas on this, like if people just go, I like this topic, or I want to see people near me, they're going to see every part of your feed that they are interested in. So everyone that sees your thing is the right person to see it. So that's already much better odds for you making a connection that you want to make or getting an audience for a thing. There's also lovely things happening with our course at the moment. So it's a masterclass in teaching improv. So there's a lot of people there that would like to be teachers or who are already teaching but want more of it or don't know how to design stuff really. So they're kind of emulating existing courses or teaching generic kind of beginner stuff. But standout teachers that get to do a lot of gigs and are in demand, they have their own stuff that's cool. You're like, I want to learn with that person. Or they just have a cool class title and you're like, I want to go do that even though I don't know who you are. That's awesome. But a lot of that, because it's a lecture type class with breakout rooms, like I said, but there's a feed. So on that feed that's specific just to that class, they're all like, oh, should we meet up on Sunday and we can all just practice running games together? Or, hey, I've got this new idea for a class. Can I just run it by you? And we're trying to push that. So the community, again, it's not me and Chris going, okay, everyone get your pens out. Here's how to teach brilliant improv. Bit of that. But mostly it's people who are all smart and amazing and who all have different experience to bring to the table, exchanging in a businessy way, best practice, the right games for the right thing, like how to design new stuff, having an experimental audience to try out their, the stuff they've learned with, or I've got this new exercise. I daren't do it to someone I'm going to charge money for because I don't know if it's going to work, but we could try it out and feedback and build it. So that's what's cool. I think you can have that a bit with Facebook, but everyone's a member of 1,000 groups. So you just feel like I feel completely overwhelmed if I try and respond to something there that I'm a part of a class or something. And otherwise it's an email chain or WhatsApp and they're not great for saving stuff or coming
Yeah,
back
and
to resources.
Facebook groups just immediately, it's almost like the troll thing, right? Is that like eventually if the group has enough people in it, it's just going to start getting drowned out by shameless plugs or it just suddenly becomes something that it maybe didn't start out being, and it's hard to like mitigate to be like, oh, that's not quite what we want to be posting in here, but everyone else has already like given up on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you don't want to be like, no, don't bring your stuff. But
yeah, exactly.
Bring your stuff. Just tag it with this, and then people can see it or not see it. You don't have to be like, ugh. Yeah, you can decide what you want. Yeah, totally.
So there's so many things about this conversation that are really exciting to me, and there's a couple things that I want to talk about in like I think a umbrella scope of what the Improv Place is and what you're doing with it, Katy. One of the things is this idea of being a professional, because I know, my experience has been in the conversation of whether or not you can make money improvising, or whether it's ever going to be lucrative or whatnot, that people are generally pessimistic about that it's like that's one, no, or that like you don't want it to be, and those are two things that I really really disagree with, is that that it can be. It's just that if it's gonna get to that place, that it does take people like you and Chris and the Improv Place community to build resources and a legitimacy to it, and that it doesn't have to conflict with the fun, like that you can make a business out of it without sucking all the fun out of it. You just have to love it enough to make the work feel like play. And so I'm curious about like your things along the way, since you started improvising and like, continuing now with this mission about for people who want to do this on a professional level, whether that's the quality or money making, like what has that been like to keep pushing that ball forward up until this point?
Yeah, and I just to say, I don't think there's any more legitimacy in it being your full-time job or not. Like some people are like, I'm going to be a doctor the whole time, and 4 times a week I'm going to go do some improv, and they might be the best improviser in town, but they're not necessarily, it's not their whole career. So I think we have this weird built-in thing that unless it's not, what do you do for your real job? You kind of get that question. And I do feel smug that it is my job. But at the same time, I don't judge anyone else for having other stuff going on. I think actually, if all you've got going on is improv, what's going to show up on stage is probably not as interesting as if you have other things going on. So I have to be weirdly careful that my life has other stuff than improv in it. Otherwise, my work will get really boring because it'll be too meta, But yeah, I think it's a lot about where you are, both like what your skill level is at and your experience level, but also where you are in the world. Like, is there a community that if there's no one's ever heard of improv where you live, then it's going to be harder to sell it as like improv. But then everywhere there are businesses that might benefit from applied improvisation, and obviously people are a lot more comfortable with online stuff now as well, and more global stuff without the traveling. So if there are people that can't travel, there are places to teach online. And I think even after the pandemic, even after we're doing proper close-knit improv in real life, we're still going to have this as a tool. I was more cynical about that at the beginning, and now I'm like, no, there are things that are better and good on here that are not as great in real life. Just in terms of like, how different ways of teaching or analyzing stuff. Maybe not shows.
Yeah, right.
But,
yeah. Fingers crossed we get back to that soon, though.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's been nice this is a good leveler, I think, for everyone. So again, less about the money and the location and more about like, let's just hang out. But yeah, in terms of professionalizing, I think everyone just has to set their own, like what they want. And a lot of it's psychological as well. Like, am I allowed to teach improv? Am I allowed to have like a fun job? There's no real legitimized school you can go to. We're talking about a lot of students of like, well, why haven't you already taught improv? And they're like, I don't know if I'm good enough. Like there hasn't been a course. There's not a box that's ticked, and particularly women. And that's just statistical analysis. Like when there's a job, I'm sure you've heard the statistic, when there's a job application, women often won't apply unless they can tick every single box. Men will more likely apply if they can tick 6 out of 10, right? So there's that comes up for improv teachers as well. Like I better have trained everywhere in the world before I'm allowed to teach. But weirdly, or advantageously for me, I suppose, I've gone through the whole thing where when I started, there was short form, there wasn't any long form around. I couldn't find it in my country. There was a tiny community in Brighton where I lived. So we had to build a community, inform them of what improv was, build an audience, develop our work. So I know how to build a community from scratch. And the same then happened in London. And then there's also like now there's too much to choose from, which is great. But then you're like, where is my value? Artistically, what am I into? What do I really want to teach? So I've happily had both ends of the scale of, you've also got to keep yourself interested and excited in the work. Otherwise, why are you doing it? Let someone else do it. So how to choose your work, what you're in it for, what you want to learn, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think if you really want to be a professional improviser, I think you can, even if it might mean moving or deciding like, I'm just not going to earn that much money for a while. Like if you want to do it, I think it's possible, particularly with and also in what context you do it. Do you know Lakshmi? She does a like playback theatre to communities of protesters. So that doesn't need a theatre as such, and that doesn't need a bought-in audience. So there's always somewhere that you can put your improv that is benefiting someone. And in my experience, I came, my experience was drama school and doing stand-up comedy. So I was like, oh, it goes here, it must go in the same place. But that's actually quite naive, because you can obviously do it for healthcare, and helping people and in a corporate setting. But also if you're just like, I want to make money from it, just go business land, because there's a lot more money there than there is if you want to like be paid to be on stage. That's probably the hardest place to earn. And teaching is like the middle ground, I guess, where you're like, I have a reliable wage that allows me to do maybe more performance projects. It depends whether you're in a town where there is stage time, paid stage time. And if there isn't, is there enough space for you to create an indie show or circuit yourself, all that kind of stuff. So I think place by place and ambition by ambition, it's different. But I do think it's possible. It just might take a bit of craft. I basically, it just made me think, when I grew up, both my parents were self-employed, so I feel like I can turn anything into a job. I started knitting 2 years ago, and my husband was like, don't become a professional knitter. Now people are going, do you sell your knitting? And I'm like, no, I don't.
No.
Please don't ask.
I could, but no.
I could, I wasn't. Oh, then it'll be
if I was going to, this is how I would do it. But.
If I was going to, I'd be amazing.
That's so funny though. And probably says a lot to have two examples of people who are making their own living self-employed wise, and then it probably makes that a little bit more like quote unquote normal for you to figure out how to do it. And I guess I'm lying a little bit in that I still choose to do scripted stuff and things as well, sometimes because that's really interesting. So I also teach writing and things, but I think that's alongside improv, and because I want to, not because there's not enough, improv teaching for me, luckily. But I think that's a nice balance. That's one of those things where if I'm doing improv all the time, I'm just going to talk about improv.
Fair.
It's nice to explore other deeper, weirder stuff too.
Just hearing, I think listening to you talk about the community building and whatnot, in terms of like professionalism, it just came to mind to me that part of the barrier, kind of like you were saying about being able to tick all the boxes, or I don't know, just like the psychology of whether or not to make money from improv. Like you said, like, am I allowed to have a fun job? There's also, I feel like this, improv is more valuable than I think people give it credit for. That people are like, well, it's so fun. And of course it's like, it's supportive and nice and it feels like camp and whatnot. But like, really considering how valuable that is, I think is something that people need to do more of, because in this time where there's so much negative going on and things that like obviously are more pressing or like urgent and dark that like you have to battle against, there's also like improv is something that is like hopeful and supportive and positive to like uplift, you know. And I think that like even just seeing the way that in the pandemic, I did not expect. I mean, it was first of all amazing that the how quickly the improv community adapted online, and I just thought that that's part of like that nerd, performance nerd craving to just like do something these fun comedy games and whatnot. But there was a point a few weeks into it where I realized that like, oh, some people really like need this emotionally, or as like a social connection, and that's that is so valuable, and I think represented in the Improv Place, and or even back to, you know, you seeking out improv resources and traveling to the States to learn from the improv hubs, and then take that back to your community where there wasn't really one, and build it up. Like that sharing, that community has so much more than just like the fun performative stuff. It is also like therapy and personal growth and positive development for people individually and as a community. So I think it's just very, very cool the way that just like how much you're demonstrating value and giving people that real value that they seek.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree that improv is this golden, beautiful thing. I mean, just putting it through thinking about it in terms of Black Lives Matter, there's like, agree with what you hear. Don't try and challenge everything. Like, just go, okay, yeah, I can see. I don't have to go, yeah, but what if? I can just, like, yes, I'm listening to you, huge amount of listening. And then that commitment to do anything that we can do as allies and that kind of thing. So just putting those values that we have, like you say, onto anything, it's such a great resource to have as a human, irrespective of whether we are on stage or we do play or whatever. We're going to have that forever. If the three of us quit improv tomorrow, we'd still be better people, I think, and would still be improvisers secretly anyway. Even if we never did another show.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I think that's such a good point. I really do feel like partly maybe this is like how my brain was anyway, but I just think that improv has like allowed me to like take in information and be more open-minded and open to criticism. And you just see so often people receive some sort of like feedback, and the automatic response is like defensiveness and having to justify and whatever. And I think good improvisers or good students of improv know that, like, whatever I'm receiving, I need to take that in. I mean, I don't have to agree with it, whatever, but there's an openness to hearing new information and not needing to defend yourself or any situation.
Yeah, totally. I found that through improv as well, it's made me a little bit better at interrogating something that could be conflict. I think years ago I would have just gone, oh, that feels a bit weird. Okay, I'll walk away. And now I'm like, okay, something weird just happened. What happened? Are you okay? I've become that guy because of improv. Because I'm like, in a scene, I would just call it out. So now I just call it out.
Totally. The fear of like, what's going to happen if I say something? Yeah.
maybe a big argument, but then we won't be sat on it for a week. Like, let's do it,
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, I could, there's tons of other stuff that I could talk about with you, Katy. And I'm just excited to direct people toward the Improv Place to learn more about what it is that you're putting out there for the improv world and the exciting community that you're creating. It is the improv.place. There is the improvplace.com, isn't there?
Yeah, we've chatted to him.
Yeah. Oh, really?
We were like, oh, yeah, all right. We've got the same name. Are we cool? And he was like, yeah, it's all right, isn't it? We're like, we could buy it off you. He's like, no. Yeah, okay.
Well, that's cool that you got in touch with him, though. That's
it's like a storefront theater, and it's again more like community based and inclusive. So yeah, check that one out too.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, we're at the Improv.place. And if you go there, you can see all the code of conduct and all the information about like what it is and stuff. And then to join the community, there's a button where you can join from that website. And if you have any questions, you can email hello@theimprov.place. And if you have queries about scholarships and discounted places and anything like that, or you want to nominate someone, it's all on that site. Any resources I think you need. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm sad that we're coming to the end of our time, because the blog post you wrote about virtual improv spoke to me on many levels. And I think it's important for everyone to read. I don't know. It's not like there's solutions that people are going to automatically find, but if anyone hasn't read it, Katy wrote a blog post and it's on her website, which we'll link, but on the nature and the sustainability of virtual improv. And amazing that we did all just like quickly go to performing online, but also at what cost?
At what cost? What have we done?
A little piece of our souls.
No, it's truly amazing. But the post brings up a lot of good points.
Thanks.
Yeah. One of the major takeaways, though, by the end of it, though, is to just find things that are sustainable or seem like good ideas, even if we return to normal. I should hopefully say when we return back to normal. But and again, that's the type of thing that is being offered on the Improv Place, is things that can sustain and maintain value, not just as a Band-Aid, but as an ongoing new way to offer value for the medium that it exists in.
Yeah, baby.
Is there anything else that you wanted to plug or just let people know that you're doing in the improv or virtual world?
Not really. What am I doing? I mean, most of it's just at the Improv Place at the moment because it's busy,
course,
and other stuff like writing and things. If you have a small child, you can listen to Sean and Robot Comedy Circuit. That's a cute podcast for small children that I write songs for. And otherwise, I'm just working on a AR thing that'll be out later on. So it's cool working in different mediums as well. But yeah, improv, I mean, have a look at the Maydays and the Nursery drop-ins. They're more like conventional. We've already got conventional, but like online drop-ins where everyone's like playing scenes and games and stuff. And they're at different times of the day. I'm sometimes leading those. Otherwise, yeah, it's mostly the Improv Place. Oh, I'm doing a show tomorrow night. That is that's Reading Fringe Festival, if anyone wants to check that out. That's a queer show, and it's just good fun, long form stuff. No technical wizardry, just a bunch of women having a fun time.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, Katy. It's been a really, really great conversation, and I wish you all the best for the Improv Place and everything else that you're doing.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining, and we'll catch you next time on Improv FAQ at length. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.